everyone.
Hi.
I can't turn my phone off.
Okay.
Oh, I did want to say something, and I was telling Paul on the phone. Two people I can always hear loud and clear here. You and Ayana. And Julene. Other people, the voices go in and out. And so when I did from at home, I kept sticking my...
I'd like to call the Windsor Board of Education regular meeting, which is also a hybrid meeting via Zoom and in person, of Tuesday, April 19th, 2022, to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance and then a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please be seated. The next item on the agenda is recognitions and acknowledgements, and the one that I have the pleasure of reading has to do with Teacher Appreciation Week, which is coming up May 2nd to May 6th. And I'll read it here. Let it be known by all citizens of Windsor that whereas Windsor teachers are responsible for shaping the minds of nearly 3,300 students in order to ensure that they all have an equal chance at success through education, and whereas our teachers prepare students to meet high standards of performance, be lifelong learners, and contribute as world citizens, and whereas Windsor's teachers go above and beyond the call of duty to fill many roles such as mentors, role models, coaches, and motivators, and whereas our country's future depends on providing quality education to all students, and whereas the Windsor Board of Education respectfully acknowledges each and every one of the district's teachers for their dedication to the families of the Windsor community, and now therefore be it proclaimed on this 19th day of April 2022 that the Windsor Board of Education hereby declares our appreciation to our teaching staff and proclaims the week of May 2nd through May 6th as Windsor Teacher Appreciation Week. Signed on behalf of the board by myself and Dr. Hill, our Superintendent of Schools. And I won't... And I do want to acknowledge, though, all staff in Windsor Public Schools, even though it's entitled Teacher Appreciation Week. We could not be the high-performing school system that we are, without the dedication of everyone. Next item on the agenda is audience to visitors. Ms. Daly.
Good evening. This is Robin Daly from the Superintendent's Office. If there is anyone from the public who would like to address the board, you may do so in two different ways. If you are using the Zoom application on your mobile device or computer, you may enter the comments into the Q&A feature located at the bottom of the Zoom menu bar. Or you may raise your hand on your computer if your device has a microphone by selecting the participant's icon on the Zoom menu bar and then clicking raise hand, or by dialing *9 on your phone. You will be given 3 minutes to speak. Please state your name and address. When you are called on, you'll be prompted with "You are now unmuted." For clear, I ask that you do not place the call on speakerphone. No comments can be made against the employees of the school district or children outside of your own.
I'd like to start the audience to visitor with anybody in here in our room here who'd like to come and address the Board of Education.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Lisethi Jubri, and I live in Windsor, Connecticut. So, dear Board of Education, I'm here today to share with you and our community of parents something that has become increasingly disturbing for me as a parent over the last few weeks. Our Sage Middle School Language Arts Department previously selected a book, and I say previously because there was a change, selected a book where the topic was to teach our 8th grade 13-year-old children about gender identity, masked under a nonfiction critical analysis, anti-bullying, and inclusivity agenda. My biggest concerns boil down to 3 things. Number 1, the language, 2, proper timing of communication, and 3, content of the book selected for our 8th graders. 1, language. The book is titled The 57 Bus, and not only does this book touch upon topics of sexual identity that should be left to parents to discuss with their children in a private setting, but it also uses language that is not appropriate for children, or anyone actually. According to an Amazon review of this book, there's a section where one guy tells another he wants to suck his prick. Tons of motherfuckers, fuck yous, and pussy to describe parts of the female anatomy, and casual use of the word nigger. The explicit language used, such as let me suck your pussy, is just flat out wrong for a book read by middle school age children. I apologize if my language offends your ears, but it really shouldn't because it was not deemed offensive enough for my 13-year-old daughter to read when it was selected. I was under the impression that a child at Windsor schools would normally get into serious trouble for speaking this way, and I don't recall seeing or hearing any adult, administrator, social worker speak this way to a community of parents. Yet the school believes it's appropriate for kids to read this book as part of their curriculum. Have we all decided that because some kids listen to it in their music, that we're going to lower the bar and read books with the same language as part of our curriculum? Number 2, communication. The timing of the communication that went out to parents regarding this book was poor at best. The email that went out on a late Friday afternoon was not even received by some parents. Furthermore, the topic of the book was embedded in the second page of an attachment in the email. Something as sensitive and as serious as this should have gotten a bit more attention. I'm wondering why book selections are not given to the parents before the school year begins, so that parents have the opportunity to look into these books or even read if they so choose. Lastly, 3, content. If our objective is to speak on acceptance and kindness towards those of different backgrounds or beliefs, I truly support that. However, we feel that the book is crossing into very sensitive territory for Christians who take exception with personal life choices that are incongruent with the Bible and our strong faith. Again, we support a message of love and nonviolence, but to normalize sexual preferences that go against our spiritual beliefs is not something that we take lightly. Upon learning about this book, the Language Arts Department did come up with an alternative initially, and then they decided, as I just found out yesterday, to cancel the book altogether. And we're thankful for that. However, will this happen again next year? Do we as Christians have to worry that the school will try to again slide it in, hoping that no one notices?
Try to finish up your time.
Yes. In conclusion, my child is no more important than yours. But before you educate my child about gender, then you need to help me understand how this is beneficial to my child's education. You can talk to my kid about gender when I can talk to yours about Jesus. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else like to address the board?
James Madison, 8 Fitzmaurice Circle. I just want to say really big thanks to Ms. McGee at Sage Park Middle School and Principal Jorgensen for a fantastic career day. The career day was an opportunity for a number of adults from the community to come in and speak about their various careers. Somewhere in the neighborhood of 20-something adults came in and taught, which is amazing because it's a midday thing. We had 5 sessions of about 30 minutes apiece. It was an incredible time. My wife and I both went there. We both have masters in computer science, and so we taught computer science to all the kids. We were actually able to break it down to something that they could do hands-on, because that's what you can do. You show what the computer does, you do it physically, and then we tell them how the computer does it magically. It was a fantastic experience, so I just want to say thank you to the school, and to really keep that up. I remember when I was in 8th grade, I got interviewed to go into the technical high school, and they asked me specifically, why do you want to go into a technical high school? And I said, because I want to have a hard skill when I get out of high school. At an 8th grade level, I knew that was a thing. And so I remember back to that. So when I'm telling these 8th graders about my career, I'd say to myself, you know what? They get it. They understand it. Now, they got a lot of years left before they have to really worry about the hard decisions, but I think planting the seed at the 8th grade is a really fantastic thing. It was smashingly successful. The logistics were great. I bothered Ms. McGee, I don't know, 10 times trying to get all the logistics right. So thank you to everybody at Sage Park for getting that, and I hope we can keep it going. It was awesome. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Anyone else like to address the board?
Hi, I'm Becky Jacobson at 50 Lighthouse Hill Road. I just figured I would make comments regarding indoctrination of our kids with the literature we're choosing, and as a Christian, I don't really see it as an issue. I don't believe we're indoctrinating our kids. I believe we're trying to make kids who may be, gay, bisexual, trans, non-binary. I believe we are trying to help those kids feel included. I don't think it has anything to do with religion. I still think religion does not belong in our public schools, any religion or all religion. You can choose, but I don't see a problem with that. My other comment would be, I know we're going to revisit at the end, towards the end of the meeting, about whether the meeting should continue being in a hybrid format, and I would strongly, strongly encourage the board to continue doing that. It has enabled me as a parent to participate even when I could not attend in person. And so whether that means like the board has to be here, but the meetings can still be held in Zoom, I think is crucial and vital to community outreach and community interaction. And if that's what you're looking for, and like I think Windsor is highly, highly partial to wanting to be, an interactive community, I think you have to continue with its hybrid form. Whether it's pandemic related or not, parents are extremely busy. Some of us have really small kids, some of us don't have childcare, and sometimes it's the only way we can participate, but at least we're participating and we're remaining knowledgeable about what's going on, and I think that's vital, important. And I would highly encourage the board to continue that format. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in the room would like to address the board? Seeing no one at this time, Ms. Daly, is there someone online who'd like to address the board?
Yes, there is. We have one person as an attendee who would like to speak. Ms. You are now.
Okay, my name is Miriam Khan, 25 Fulton Street. I just wanted to alert the board of a very important matter. This week on Thursday is board member Nathan Wollaston's birthday. And in October, I do recall that I was sung happy birthday, though I did not want to be sung happy birthday. So I do hope that the board will sing Nathan a very happy birthday on my behalf. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Happy birthday coming up, Nathan. Oh.
Thank you.
We should have screened that caller out. Former board members, Anyone else, Ms. Daly?
There are no additional attendees wishing to speak, and there are no questions in the Q&A.
Okay. Based on that, we're going to close audience to visitor. The next item is the consent agenda. And before I turn it over to Mr. Lockhart, is there any of the items that you want pulled? Paul, anything?
No,
Okay.
thank you.
Okay.
Chairman, I
Ms.
move that we adopt the consent agenda items 4A through D, which is financial, enrollment, School Services and Human Resources report.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Lockhart, seconded by Mr. Panos. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Abstentions? Motion carries 800. Next item is approval of minutes.
I move the Board of Education approve the minutes of the March 15th, 2022 regular meeting and the April 5th, 2022 special meeting.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Motion made by Ms. Taylor, seconded by Mr. Panos. Is there any discussion? Any changes? Seeing and hearing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Abstentions, motion carries 800. Next item of business is the student representative report.
Okay. Good evening, everybody.
evening.
As you guys know, I'm Damari Borns, and I'll bring you guys the report. Students feel as though there should be a greater accent on mental health inside of their school. There's a significant accent on this in the middle school, but high school students lack the consistent support that is offered to middle school level students. Students also stated that their teachers aren't building the same connection that they used to build. They feel as though teachers are focusing solely on the student aspect of said individual instead of building that deeper connection. I've had a conversation with a couple teachers, and they have stated that there is a limited amount of security in the building, and students are starting to take advantage of that. Students are also taking advantage of the e-hall pass because they're aware now that there's no way to check that the student is actually on a pass with the security guards walking and passing by, because there's only one security guard on each floor. So the system that was paid for to decrease the numbers is not working the way it's actually supposed to. And teachers also feel as though administrative presence is missing throughout the building, especially during passing times. But other than that, we just came from spring break. Energy is high, and seniors are approaching the lazy season, but we're still pressing on.
Okay, thank you very much. Questions of our student representative?
Do you?
Mr. Panos?
Just, could you, are you saying that we're just understaffed with regard to the security guards, number of security guards?
From what the teacher said, yes.
Okay.
They believe that there should be more security guards within the school because there's only one security guard on each floor to, limit the distractions within the classroom while classrooms are going on. So students know where to go whenever a security guard is on one side. So if the security guard's on that side, they're going to go to the other side because there's only one of them.
They're pretty clever, indeed. And you say administrative, they said that administrative presence was limited, you're saying?
Yeah, they're saying that
reason,
the administration that is, in the building, they're not showing up as frequently as they wish they would, stepping in whenever, students are inside of the hallways or being disruptive. It's usually like they'll call security, and the security guard, like I said, it's only one of them. They take a little while to come down there so the students have time to make their way out of there. But yeah, from the teacher's perspective, the administrators are not coming around as much as they should.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Dr. Hill?
So we don't have one security officer at the high school. There are actually 5 at the high school. And so we will have there will be some shifts in that number, but there's not one. I heard that a couple of times. I just want to make sure the public knows there isn't just one. And again, not an excuse, but a reality of the situation. That's actually currently one more security officer than we had when we had 400 more students in the building. So I don't want anybody to think that we reduced anything at all thus far. And as we said right at the beginning of the year when we talked about other issues, those who want to do nefarious things as they always have in schools around the country, around the globe. That's what they do. They're going to find the gap. So we can't, and I don't want people in the public thinking you can hire just enough securities to cover every single corner of that gigantic campus. Because when a student wants to not be seen, it's a big building, they're going to do that. And I will also remind people during passing time, we should absolutely see our administrators. That's a concern to me, I just heard. But also, teachers are required to be in the hallway as well during passing. It's not just for administrators to be in the hallway. So I just want the public to know that and be clear. That's not something that's specific to Windsor Public Schools. All of you went to school in America, that's American schools. I like all information to be out there. All right, that's all. Thank you.
Mr. Lockhart?
Yeah, what I find concerning is that staff member or teacher felt very comfortable to talk to the student rep and have the student rep be able to represent that to the board. It is my hope and prayer that any staff member within any of our buildings is comfortable enough to go to their building administrator and to express those concerns and to make sure that they have a fair opportunity to address them. So I am thankful to the board rep, the student rep, for bringing that to our attention. But I want to be very clear. We're hearing a lot of these different innuendos that are coming up for the teachers. If you feel that there's an issue within your building, the first point of contact should be your building administrator, your principal, period. You feeling comfortable giving it to the student, that's great, but there's a process, there's protocol, and if this is speaking to a greater issue where people don't feel comfortable enough speaking to an administrator, then that's a bigger issue that we need to address. But this is concerning to me, and I just want to thank the student rep for bringing it to our attention. I heard you say one per level. This is just very disappointing that it's coming out in this forum through the student rep and not coming through the superintendent or the building administrator. That's my own concern that I have. I support our teachers wholeheartedly, and if they feel this is the only way that they have a way to express themselves, we have a bigger, more issue that we need to address.
Any other questions? I guess I have one as well, and that has to do, we know there was an issue in the beginning of the year with the passing of students in the hallways. And we purposely tried a new system that had been successful in another district, which is kind of an electronic pass. I don't know, Dr. Hill, if you can describe the nature of how that works, both for board members who may not know, as well as those tuning in tonight.
So I'm not an expert. I'll try. I am definitely going to call on a student rep to chime in because I know he's living with those passes. So the high school administration decided to implement an electronic pass system. It was an e-hall pass. And this pass system, to my understanding, the teachers are aware of the number of passes that are out at any given time across the building because it's done through a computer. And so also, which is concerning to me as well, and I'm with Member Lockhart on this, hearing this stuff for the first time tonight. The whole idea was that you were supposed to be able to track not only the number of students who were out at any given time, but which students were out during which block and which teachers were giving passes consistently. As my experience of 20 years as an administrator tells me, students on passes are getting passes from adults who are giving them passes, whether it's a written pass or it's an electronic pass. So I'm concerned to hear that students are out of the rooms, but folks aren't tracking them, because that was the whole idea of why it was sold to me from administration at the high school as to why this system would be a good system. Because I am old school. You know, I'm back to the old piece of paper in your name. So people go to a computer, I'm thinking it should be a much more efficient system. Did I cover that system well? You want to add a piece?
The problem with the system is that if students did not get a pass from said teacher, they can just say that they got a pass from a teacher. And the security guards in the hallway have no way of checking that, all right, oh, he has a pass from this teacher, he's okay. Like, he could just say, oh, I have a pass from this teacher, and they have to let them go because they have no way to check it.
It sounds like we have some work to do in our new passing system. Mr. Wollaston?
Yeah, I know from my visit in February to Windsor High that Mr. Parker told me that there were some initial kinks from switching over to the electronic pass system that they were beginning to work out. this wasn't one of them, so I'm guessing this is a new one that is surfacing up, but I imagine as we switch over to a new system, we're gonna figure out the hard way the things that have to be corrected. So thank you for raising this to our attention. And I can imagine that that is a possibility, especially if a student is just late or deciding not to go to class and is just wandering through the halls because they're wandering through the halls. It would be beneficial if the security guards had some sort of access to the system. So overall, thank you for raising this awareness to us, and I hope we can use it to make a positive change.
Thank you. Mr. Panos?
So the electronic pass did not involve a device that they carried around with them? Is that the idea, Dr. Hill? I mean, you know, some places you go and you may take a half an hour to get your meal, and you know, they give you what is it?
If you don't go to class, if you don't make your way to the class to get to a pass from passing time, then you just don't have a pass. You're just wandering the halls. I imagine that's how it would work.
There's what I'm asking is, a security guard stops the student and says, can't they just say, well, where's your electronic pass? Is there any physical, and is there any physical evidence, a card that has a chip in it or anything, or I don't know. Go ahead.
It's a virtual pass. Like, am I wrong?
Virtual.
It's a virtual pass. For them to go from a written pass to like a beeper, if you were at, like, I don't know, IHOP or something, or wherever, it would defeat the purpose of that. This is, it's a virtual pass that is, there's a brain to the system, so that if someone is out and about, you can check who should be in the halls and who, who, if you're not on the list, basically, you're without a pass.
Okay, so the security officer then, or monitor then has a list that they can bring up, right?
One would think, but I think that's the gap we're finding out right now. Yeah.
Ms. Batchelder?
So the security monitors have access that are at the high school as anyone would, as any of the administrators would on their phone. They can check. One, they have to check. They can't just take the word of the student. They need to check against what the system says. They have access. Whether they're using it or not, that's the question, and that's what I'll find out. But I also know we've had security staff across the district, you know, just being out sick, and we've had subs in. So and that's my other question. I believe because if they're a sub or a part-time security, they may not have the access to the high school system like all of the normal high school security does. So it's a great point. So I will make sure to find out the exact answer and make sure we all have access to the high school system, even if you're not stationed at the high school every day. So it won't be a conflict if you are transferred to the high school one given day.
Thank you for that explanation.
Just one follow-up. I didn't understand. We say that the teacher or some teachers have to give them a pass. I'm not sure that this is the issue here that's being brought up, right? But if a teacher grants a pass, I assume that they're following the rules, and if they aren't, that there's some way of monitoring that. Am I missing something here? I mean, why would a teacher, if somebody just say, I want to wander the hallways and I'm getting...
So I can answer the question, or you still have more to add to that question?
You can answer the question.
The teacher is doing the pass, yes, in the system. But what I'm saying is the way it was sold to me, because I am old school on some things, and passes have worked for 30 years of my career without a computer pass, that they would be able to track. Because I do know in some schools, a problem is, number one, the students who float or skip classes, they're typically the same people. It's not like a shock or a new day. They're the same people. They've been in every school in all our lives. So the teachers know who's skipping. The skipping, either originates as they come in the building or as they leave a class. The computerized pass, for those who get the pass, now we know some just don't, but for those who get the pass, I'm like, I have questions now based on the student rep's report. Why are there so many students who are floating if they're on a pass? Because then you can see that they have now abused the system. So then that student should be on a restricted pass system. So they shouldn't be getting a pass.
Right.
Potentially we would hear from their parent complaining, but then you can say your kid is not following the rules, and we give them a pass, and they're out walking the building and not following the system. So that's one issue that I've heard. Another issue that I've heard from the student rep is that our security officers actually have the ability, which I was told, that's why I was looking surprised that they did. I was told they had the ability to check, because I would, of course, ask that. There's nothing new in a school that's going to shock me, not at this point in my career. So I'm like, when I was asking the questions months ago, how will they know a student has a pass when they're moving through the building? Now we just clarified that they can check. So my understanding from the student rep again is that that means adults, what I've said from the beginning of the year, not doing what they're supposed to do. You have the ability and you have the resources, then it's supposed to be done. Notwithstanding the substitutes, as Ms. Batchelder just mentioned, which I think we can address that, because already crossed my mind is the idea of tablets. Pretty easy, pretty inexpensive. But then I have people that I have to address. The other part is giving kids, because again, I'm telling you, if it's the same kids, they're getting the passes at the same time from the same staff. So why do you keep giving that kid a pass? So there are a number of things that need to be addressed, and they will be addressed. That's all I'm going to say.
Thank you. Anything else? Okay, the next item on the agenda is the President's report. And I want to publicly thank Dr. Hill and Dr. Mallory and presenters from our special Board of Education meeting on April 5th for the social emotional learning program that's going on throughout Windsor Public Schools. We have a right to be very proud of this effort. The SEL program will also be highlighted again tomorrow at Windsor High School in what's billed as an SEL showcase. Dr. Hill, Ms. Batchelder, Mr. Lockhart, and I presented the Board of Education's budget to the Windsor Town Council, and it was well received. We didn't have to come back a second time, which has been the case for several years now, luckily. The next step is for the Town Council to put together both the board's budget and town services budget and come up with an overall budget that will go to a referendum. I think it's billed as being on May 10th, where voters have a right to vote it up or down. We're very excited about celebrating all Windsor Public School staff in early May as part of Teacher Appreciation Week. And as I said before, it's all staff being appreciated. And we'll be at all the schools honoring staff in the morning with a breakfast. I will be attending the National Honor Society induction ceremony at Windsor High School on Thursday. To me, this is even more significant of an event as the students have been at school during a pandemic. And in addition to the 4 pillars that are always honored, I would add a 5th, and that's perseverance. That's all I have. Are any questions? Seeing none, I'll go to Windsor High School and Ms. Taylor, and then Mr. Wollaston.
Thank you, President Fury. So much going on at Windsor High School for the positive this time of the year. We just finished up, as everyone knows, with spring break, and that's when you go into, before we get the senioritis, there's work to be done. President Fury mentioned the National Honor Society induction on the 21st, but there's also spring orchestra concert on May 5th, the choral concert May 12th, and the band concert May 19th as well. Junior prom is in front of us and coming up very quickly on May 14th. And and cap and gown distribution, all types of things, senior outing. So just tune into, the amazing information that is sent out to all parents of Windsor High School students that has all athletic schedules and the like, and you can find out all the information. But I do know that people were asking about prom and those activities that it's so nice to see happening again post-pandemic. Well, we're still in it, but doing things a bit differently. So adhere to those dates. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Wollaston?
I'll just say I was blessed with the opportunity to be able to attend a track meet that it was held at Bloomfield High on the Saturday, the 8th of April, I believe. The rest of the rain was crazy. It was like on and off rain all day, but I got to watch some of the young men and young ladies perform exceptionally. And although I'm not sure what the final score was because the rest of the meet was postponed, I'm sure they did amazing.
Any questions about Windsor High School? Okay. Mr. Halleck, Sage Park?
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Tomorrow, April 20th, will be the 6th grade content night from 6 to 8 p.m. On Friday, April 29th, from 7:10 to 7:45 a.m., Principal Jorgensen will be hosting a coffee talk, so we look forward to that. To piggyback off of a Teacher Appreciation Week, families of Sage Park students are encouraged to write a teacher appreciation notes, thanking our teachers for their hard work this year. And on May 3rd, there will be an early dismissal. And I also want to say on April 7th, I was able to attend the night of jazz concert at Windsor High School. They also had our Windsor high school students, along with our Sage Park students, did an excellent job. I thank Dr. Hill for also attending that event. It was a great night of music as well. So that concludes my report. Thank you.
Great. Questions for Sage Park? Okay. Mr. Lockhart, do you have a report regarding Clover?
Yeah, I just wanted to say the teacher appreciation breakfast is coming up in the first week of May. I'm encouraging all parents and students to send appreciation notes to their respective teachers. And I'm looking forward to engaging all the staff through all the breakfasts, but for me particularly at Clover Street. So look forward to seeing you soon.
Any questions regarding Clover? Ms. Cantor, John F. Kennedy School.
Thank you. I just would like to say that they celebrated the Women's Month assemblies, and they had several guests there who spoke to the female students, grades 4 and 5, about their careers. And they had special guest speakers, and they included an assistant superintendent from Bloomfield Public Schools, an assistant superintendent from the instructional services from Windsor Public Schools, a social worker, a coordinator for social services in Windsor, a representative from Travelers Insurance Company, and a board member from Windsor, and 3 of the 4 only black female state troopers. Also, they have begun their school climate committee, and the updates are they are having monthly assemblies to honor success and provide short lessons around various character traits and expectations for the school on their behavior. And they were opening up their store, their school store. And there's 2 more things on that. They have a school intervention process in place, and they're offering 1.5-hour after school for math and English language intervention for approximately 80 students, and it began March 30th through about May 31st. There will be no more free lunch for everyone next year, and those who qualify based upon family income will be able to receive it. And there are a few more things. I just want to, again, thank the teachers for celebrating, that we're celebrating them and everything, the staff, everything that they do all the time. It's, really 24 hours a day, a lot of times thinking about all these kids. Also, another thing, Secretaries and Administrative Assistants Day is coming up Wednesday, April 27th, and we want to celebrate that. Remember those who keep us all together and keep things moving, as well as Nurses Day is Thursday, May 12th, and we want to thank them for everything they do as well. So I've finished. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for JFK? Okay, Ms. Skalinsky, Oliver Ellsworth.
Great, thank you. We have a few exciting things going on there. They are finally starting field trips again this year, which is actually super exciting because most of these kids have never even been on one. And so this spring they're taking, I believe it's first and second graders and possibly kindergarten too. Yeah, so they're going to Northwest Park. So I'm sure the kids are just going to absolutely have a field day with that. Also, they started to do a colleague-to-colleague visits where teachers and obviously colleagues can go and observe other grade-level classrooms to observe best practices and things of that nature. Teachers found it very valuable, and so they're going to continue to do this, which I think is great for them. And then finally, I think, which is the most exciting thing, is the State Department of Education is interested in highlighting best practices, focusing on lifting student voices. And last year, if people aren't aware of this, OE created an I Am Me book, which the students and teachers wrote actual stories about what makes them special or just anything about themselves, and it's a published book. And so the State Department is coming in and they're interviewing teachers, students, and families about the project, and OE is going to be highlighted. So I think that's incredible.
Very good. That is very exciting. I remember the book from last year, and at our Juneteenth celebration at Wilson Branch, a lot of excerpts were read by the students. Other questions for Ellsworth? Last but not least, Mr. Panos, Pequannock School.
I'm always least.
Never.
You, Leonard. Well, Pequannock has been doing a lot with STEM. Obviously, they're going to have this Friday. They had a STEM night last week, and they had, not last week, the before. And Northwest Park will be here this Friday doing certain science projects with them. They had some boosters, rather amazing. They raised money for the Ukraine. There was one mentioned that was for $1,000 and a truck full of items that were sent. They had another one though, where they were doing lemonade. Students were selling lemonade, and they actually raised $5,000 to help the Ukrainians. Most amazing, the PTO booster itself raised for itself for the class. They raised $20,000 now. I don't know where all this money is coming from, but this includes Clover Street, though. That'll have to say. So they did a very good. When it culminated in the class being able to cover Jay Mahalka with toilet paper and then chase him down the hallway. Sounds like you have a lot of fun in these schools, and I'd like to get back in. It says anyway.
We can arrange that.
They had some of the high school students come down and tutor. The kids loved it. They partner with them, and they get to connect with them. There's now tomorrow at 2 o'clock at the school, they're going to have a Most Improved Student Certificate Award, and the winner gets to go free to the Yard Goats game tomorrow night at 7. And reduced fare for the rest of anyone else who's interested. So I thought that was pretty good. They had, they're going to have choppers to goat. But they do many serious things here at Pequannock. They're preparing them. They're all getting ready to prepare them to be ready for the third grade. Obviously, the end of the year is coming up, and not just interventions, but pulling kids and pulling them into small groups for instruction. PTO meeting is May 2nd. That's it.
Thank you. Questions for Pequannock? I'll just make one comment. I was also at STEM night with Team Paragon Robotics. We had our robot there, and I was able to go not only in the gym where they had some of it, but also into the cafeteria, though I had to be very careful with it. We didn't have many students, so I spent most of my time making sure we didn't do anything untoward with our robot. The next item on the agenda is setting the last school day for 2021-22. And do we have a motion?
I move the Board of Education approve a change to the approved 2021-2022 calendar, setting Monday, June 13th, 2022 as the last day of school for students in grades kindergarten to grade 11, and the last day for teachers would be Tuesday, June 14th, 2022.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Motion made by Mr. Lockhart, second by Mr. Panos. Any discussion?
Just
Mr.
to clarify,
Panos?
obviously, the seniors will be gone already. That's the idea. The graduation is set for June 2nd, right?
Six.
6th, excuse me. Oh, sorry. It was a trick.
I guess as long as they're in good standing. The
Yeah,
seniors who
not
are in
all,
good standing.
Except those who don't have the requisite number of credits, yes.
Any other comments or discussion? Seeing and hearing none. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Uh-oh, wait, hold on to the vote.
I'm sorry, I don't know if I'm supposed to speak. I thought that I heard him say K, and I just was wondering about pre-K. I could have heard him correctly, though.
For grade,
It's-
true.
What it's listed here is kindergarten to grade 11, so pre-K is as well?
Thank you.
No, they have to.
That was my second comment.
They have to stay there. They have to stay in school.
I offer, Mr. Chairman?
Yes. Mr. Lockhart?
I offer a substitute motion that the word pre be inserted before kindergarten, and the remaining portion of the motion remains intact.
Is that acceptable, Mr.
Yes,
Panos?
it is, yes. Certainly.
And that is
Thank
in
you,
the form of a
thank you,
substitute motion.
Principal Gruber.
That's in the form of a substitute motion.
Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Abstention, vote carries 800. Next item on the agenda is the healthy food certification. And I think we're going to have two separate motions for this.
That's correct, sir.
You get to read the whole thing.
My pleasure. First motion, I move the Windsor Board of Education pursuant to Connecticut General Statutes, Section 10-215F, certifies that all food items offered for sale to students in the schools under its jurisdiction and not exempted from the Connecticut nutrition standards published by the Connecticut State Department of Education will comply with the Connecticut nutrition standards during the period of July 1st, 2022 through June 30th, 2023. This certification shall include all food offered for sale to students separately from reimbursable meals at all times and from all sources, including but not limited to school stores, vending machines, school cafeterias, and any fundraising activities on school premises sponsored by the school or by non-school organization and groups.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Motion made by Mr. Lockhart, seconded by Mr. Panos. Is there any discussion or need for any explanation from the district? I know for some people, this is an annual thing that we do, and the second motion will explain some other foods that are allowed at a different time. So the motion's been made by Mr. Lockhart, seconded by Mr. Panos. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Abstentions, the vote carries 800. Another motion, Mr. Lockhart.
Mr. Chairman, I move that food and beverage exemptions required. The Windsor Public Schools Board of Education will allow the sale to students of food items that do not meet Connecticut nutrition standards and beverages not listed in Section 10-221Q of the Connecticut General Statutes, provided that the following conditions are met. 1, the sale is in connection with an event occurring after the end of the regular school day or on the weekend. 2, the sale is at the location of the event. 3, the food and beverage items are not sold from a vending machine or school store. An event is an occurrence that involves more than just regularly scheduled practice, meeting, or extracurricular activity. For example, soccer games, school plays, interscholastic debates are events, but soccer practices, play rehearsals, and debate team meetings are not. The regular school day is the period from midnight before to 30 minutes after the end of the official school day. Location means where the event is being held. That is all in the form of a motion, Mr. President.
Okay. Is there any discussion?
Oh, I'll second it.
Sorry. Motion made by Mr. Lockhart, quite a long motion there, sir, and seconded by Mr. Panos. Any discussion on this? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Abstention. Motion carries 800. Next item on the agenda is a discussion and possible action to extend the current hybrid format for Board of Education meetings. As you know, we've been under, by law, a certain formality of allowing all board members to either be in place or be at home or here in chambers. The board decided early on that we would allow the same thing for the community, to be able to have hybrid meetings where the community could be in here or could be at home or wherever they may be. That was supposed to extend until April 30th. The thought that I had was that we would at least extend this through the rest of the school year. Committee meetings are up to the discretion of the chairs of those meetings, but I think most of those meetings have been virtual and not even hybrid. They've been virtual, which, as many have said, even here tonight, has made it an ability to make meetings, no matter what the weather is or other obligations you may have, not having to rush to the boardroom here. I had a brief discussion or hearing with CABE, our Connecticut Associations of Boards of Education, that there's a bill to extend this in any event. So even what we do tonight may in some ways be required anyway, but I'm hoping that I can get unanimous consent for our group here, for the board members here, that we extend our current practice for, at least for the end of the year. Is there any objection to that? Comments, Mr. Panos?
Just to make the comment that I would suggest that the committee meetings also be as it was. You're talking about continuing as we are now, right? That is to say, rather than leaving it, as you put here, leaving committee meetings up to the chair. I mean, I can't imagine.
That's how they've been now.
Oh, okay, okay. So they have, well, I mean, if anything, I would suggest that having Zoom meetings for for the committees are actually, at least as important, or not as important, but they're not as important as this, but as convenient. Typically, you'd like to listen in on it, and even though you can't comment about it. So it's always been a difficult thing to make a committee meeting where you really can't participate except at audience to visitors. So now you can do it when you do it on Zoom. So I would suggest that we would want to require that committee meetings be on Zoom, and whether hybrid or strictly by Zoom.
Well, right now, the chairs are Ms. Taylor, and do you have any intention of not having a committee meeting virtual only?
No.
Mr. Wollaston, do you have any intention of having all the committee meetings be anything but virtual, long-range planning?
No.
I guess because we don't have a chair of the policy committee, I'm in my role as ex officio of all committees, I have no intention of the policy committee meeting being anything but virtual. So we have 2 months to go.
Well, so there's no issue here. We can just make it a requirement, right?
Well, then that would take a motion.
Oh, I see. Well,
I was just asking for unanimous consent, but if you want to make a motion.
Oh, I see. Well, I would move that all meetings be offered either virtual or on Zoom. That's it.
So the motion would be that we'd keep the regular meeting status as it is now.
Which is hybrid.
Right. Except for committees, which would be virtual.
Which would, right.
Virtual only for the rest of the year.
They would be virtual, right? Is that? So, I mean.
Is there a second to that
Second.
motion?
Okay.
Look at that.
What is this?
Lightning, I don't know.
Further discussion.
Yeah. Uh-oh.
Mr. Lockhart.
Well, there's nothing to discuss, but, I'm a traditionalist. I'm a firm believer you should be in your seat. I'm not going to waver from that. That's just who I've always been. And, but I understand the convenience and the efficiency it allows us to conduct our business. So I'm going to vote in support of this, and just want to make sure that, we understand that we just got to govern ourselves, and at some point, none of us are going to be back on this board again. It's going to be a new slate of people at some point, and we want to make sure that there's a historical perspective where it does not become a process where it gets perverted, gets abused, or anything of that nature. That's my only concern that I've always had. So I enjoy the convenience, but I also, being in the seat, we were elected. People want to be able to see us, argue with us, throw stuff at us, whatever they want to do. But at the end of the day, I personally, I'm just a traditionalist. I like being in my seat, but I also like being in front of my computer, hitting mute when I don't want to hear something.
So again, just to make it clear, and if it's not clear, I'll make sure Ms. Daly has the correct written motion to this. But the gist of it is that we would continue for the rest of this calendar year, which is only 2 more months, in the hybrid.
Academic calendar year?
Academic.
Okay, because calendar year, I take that as December.
No, academic calendar year through June, in the same manner that we had. The legislature is probably going to act anyway, and then we'll probably have to have, possibly by June, whether it's a committee meeting or a second vote of how we start off in September, because we are off for July and August for good behavior, and that the only difference would be that committee meetings won't be at the discretion of the chair, but even committee meetings will be virtual. The motion was made by Mr. Panos, seconded by Ms. Taylor. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Vote carries 8-0-0. Thank you for the good of the group there, Mr. Lockhart. You had your say. Next item is the superintendent's report. Dr. Hill.
Thank you, Mr. President. So, as brought forward by our student rep, spring break is behind us. We are in that home stretch. I believe, if I'm off, I'm sure someone in the audience is going to yell it out. 40 days left, and now that the board has voted, and the 2021-2022 school year will come to an end. Registration for our summer enrichment program has closed. As of this time, we have approximately 500 students registered. Families are very excited about this opportunity for their students this summer, and I am as well, to see the second iteration of this program go off this summer. I'm very excited. I just think it's an incredible opportunity for our students across the district, and looking forward to seeing all the different opportunities that they will take part in this summer. My next coffee talk is planned for Monday, May 23rd at 6 p.m. It'll be at the LP Wilson Courtyard, so just outside here, outside. And that's all, of course, depending on the weather. If there's inclement weather, then we'll be in here in the boardroom. If anything happens to me, Mr. Madison will continue to do talk, since he at this point has made it clear to me that he has been to more of my coffee talks than I have. So, you know, I think I'm invincible, but the flu knocked me down. I apologize for missing one of my coffee talks, but he got me, and he's let me know he has definitely done more than me, but I will do my best to be at this coffee talk. The district's COVID-19 numbers have remained very low. We continue to send out a weekly communication, of course, with our COVID numbers, and that would normally be something I would just pass over real quick, but just listening to what's going on, like particularly in New York City and other places where, you know, they took the mask off and now the theaters are like, put the mask back on. I'm not getting into debates. Lord, we've debated for 2 years in this country, but I'm just glad to see that our numbers are low and we're okay here in Windsor. I think that a big part of that is we have a high vaccination rate for our state and our community, and I think people have just been careful, and I appreciate that completely. Before I go to a couple of discussion questions, the last thing I'll just repeat, thank you, Mr. President, for sharing it earlier, but tomorrow will be the SEL Showcase, the Social Emotional Learning Showcase. It'll be at Windsor High School. For those in the community listening who don't really know, I took it upon myself to put Windsor out in the forefront of this effort. So social emotional learning, while it's not new, and we're definitely not pioneers here in the country, it's been happening around the country. The work has been done, particularly after this pandemic. It's become even more of something on the forefront. But I wanted Windsor to be the district in the state of Connecticut to take it on as a serious effort and not as a thing to do. So this, as I've said repeatedly at a few of these meetings, this is not a thing that's going to go away. And it's not a thing that, oh, this is a thing we're doing this year. As I've said earlier as well, so a lot of things in our school systems in America, you know, they go June to September, or September to June rather, and then like, what's the new thing? So this is not a new thing. This is, you know, something that's very important. I believe our student rep touched on that. It's the relationship building, it's the understanding of your students, their emotional needs and social needs as well, because if you don't take care of those things, you can't get to the optimal learning. And as we heard some of our audience, the visitor speakers, you know, students come from different homes, different backgrounds, and those have to be appreciated and respected. And that's all part of the SEL work. So as long as I'm here, it's not a thing. It's going to be what we do. And so we will have a number of visitors here tomorrow to see what we're doing. Again, I'm not a person to say, oh, you know, first time doing it, we're doing it perfectly. But I'm okay with being the first to go out there and say, but we're doing it. And we're going to continue working at it. So I'm looking forward to our visitors from the state. We have a commissioner coming. We have some pretty notable folks coming through just to see what we're doing. And I know other districts have already reached out, other superintendents, you know, like they're watching what we're doing, like, hey, Terrell, let us know. So it's okay. Sometimes it's good to be the first, even if you make the mistakes. It's good to be the first. So you're welcome to come by the high school. It's 8:30 to 11:30 tomorrow. 8:30 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. tomorrow, and all are welcome to come by Windsor High School. Okay, that being said, something I know everybody with bated breath is waiting to hear about, that would be discussion on DACO's performance. I know Member Lockhart said he wants to be in the seat in case people in the audience want to throw things. None of us here work for DACO, so I don't want anything thrown at me, and dry cleaning is expensive. Okay, so at this time, I'm going to ask my Director of Business Services and Human Resources, Danielle Batchelder, to present the latest information on DACO's performance, which has been a concern to us all the entire year.
Thank you. So, as everyone knows, statewide, nationwide, we're short on drivers. DATCO currently is running 45 routes for us, which means we have 45 drivers. So to give you a comparison, last September 2020, we ran 54 routes or buses, which equates to 54 drivers. So we're 9 buses / drivers less this year due to driver shortage. Because of this, they've had to combine a lot of buses, which have made a lot of buses late. There is a consistency. There's a consistency with what buses are late every day. And I think one of the issues that we probably should have done earlier was actually change those routes for the remainder of the year, instead of having a call every single day from a school saying bus 3 is late, 25. Bus 6, bus 20. 25. Because it's late every day by the same amount of time. They were hopeful that maybe they'd get drivers, but there is no. We have to just look at where we are. We're running 45 buses, not 54, and project the new times on the website so parents know every day that's the new time. I did go back and look to see if when we have buses late for the different levels, it does mean sometimes, but it doesn't mean every single time that they're late for school. We do combine. However, I do want to point out we do have quite a high number of buses that almost reached an hour at times late for school. So that's a huge concern. And they are actually adding a geo fence moving forward for next year. So we'll be able to actually capture a lot more real time when buses come and go at the school level. Principals have been extremely supportive to make sure those kids get caught up, but it's not acceptable. One of the things that I've already talked with DACO about is we do have contract language for the number of buses we originally signed on for, because that's how many buses they had to purchase and are leased, and the number of days in a contract that we have to pay for, which is at least 180 days. But they have, we are making an agreement that we are only for this year paying for exactly what are used, not what the contract says. So I will be getting a substantial savings from them for this year. I was very clear that no, we're not happy. Town Council, Board of Ed, everyone's now. It's just. I know it's not their fault, but they still are a vendor, and we still pay them, and they still have to provide a service for us. So, on one hand, they are gonna make somewhat of compensation back to us, which is, I think, one of the things the board has asked for. And moving forward, we are going to change those times because we have 2 months left. That is what it is. We have a couple drivers in the hopper, but again, they have to fight with the timing on DMV's part as well. It's not just DACO getting them on board. The other thing that they have recently added to our terminal is a recruiter just for Windsor. So our dispatcher manager, Terry, which she's presented here, she will not have to be doing the human resources part of DACO as well as being the terminal manager. They actually brought on someone without a cost to us to recruit strictly for Windsor moving forward. So it just allows our current staffing levels to be able to, hit the ground. If we need them to drive the bus, that's what, they will do as the terminal manager or any of the dispatchers to help the need.
Okay, questions on this? Ms. Cantor first, and Mr. Lockhart, then Mr. Panos.
Thank you. I've been sought out by my constituents because they've had this problem with buses being late, and they're not reaching out to the schools, letting the school know, or schools know that they're late. And we get an email saying that they're going to be 10 minutes late, the constituents, and they're far exceeding that. And I know you said they don't know, but they really have a general idea where they're going, especially when they're doubling, tripling up on the buses. So they need to notify the school. I spoke to with Mrs. Jorgensen tonight because it was the same problem again, and I think they either doubled or tripled up on the bus. And so you say it's savings, but children's time is very valuable as well. So when it takes, like you said, an hour to get home, these children could be doing their homework, they could be involved in activities, they may be late for their activities. The other thing that has happened is that the bus company has been changing the bus stops without notifying the school or the parents or guardians. They cannot do that. They need to notify the students, the parents, and the guardians, and the teacher. They had a child walk across Route 159, both lanes, during rush hour traffic.
Okay, so this is the very first time I'm hearing that, so I would need to research it. I'm not saying it's false, but there's got to be a reason for what you're bringing up. And so I will figure out that, because this is the very first time I'm hearing that, which is also concerning, because I would hope that parent would have reached out to us or parents of that bus. I have no notice of that. So if you can give me that information offline,
I can give it to you now verbally. It happened to my son about 2 weeks ago. He was sick the week before school ended. He was out sick that whole week, and he was sick last week. They dropped him off on the opposite side of the bus stop. It's not a bus stop. And he crossed 2 lanes of traffic. And I don't trust the traffic on 159.
No, they're not supposed to.
Well, they did. So you need...
I'll find out.
Bus
I'm
20.
Yeah, no, I do know your bus. There had to be a sub on that, which is not an excuse. It's the reason probably, but I'll find out. However, please, any child that does not feel comfortable getting off a school bus has every right and should speak up for themselves.
The parents don't feel comfortable, and it was merged buses. It was 20 was merged with another bus or 2 other buses, and they were heading northbound on 159.
What do you mean the parents don't feel comfortable?
We didn't get a notification that they were going to be late or the change of the bus.
I mean, so just take your son because you brought your son up. If that is not the correct bus stop for any child, that child should not get off that bus.
Yes, but I'm an adult and he's not. He doesn't know. I told him not to
know.
get
That's
off.
why I'm trying to
Right,
get
right.
information out to please tell your children that. But
did,
I will figure out what happened.
And today they did the right stop, but he rode around on the bus till 3:40. He gets out about 5 or 3.
Okay.
So it's not working out too well. And I understand that there's a shortage, but there's no reason for DACO not to notify the school. There's complete incompetence.
So DACO does notify the school. So that's where I'm getting, I
Well,
don't know
we
what,
weren't
because I get the
notified.
notifications
Okay,
every
we weren't-
morning and afternoon.
We weren't notified, and I spoke with Mrs. Jorgensen, and they are not notifying her. So you can talk to her maybe later on tomorrow, and I'll follow up with you on the date that they dropped him off at the
yes,
Mega bus stop. Thank you.
Are you done, Jill?
Yes, thank you.
Mr. Lockhart, and then Mr. Panos.
I have personal frustrations with DACO, but I've shared those with administration, so I'm trusting. But in my role here, I'm representing all the kids. I'm very frustrated with DACO. I'm not frustrated with the drivers. I'm frustrated with DACO. Little perspective, when we was in the pandemic, this board did the right and ethical thing to support DATCO and all their employees to make sure that they were gainfully employed and that no one was collecting unemployment during the pandemic when we were not running the buses. We did the right thing by DATCO the entire pandemic when the school buildings were closed. We did right by them. Now that our buildings are open, DATCO is not doing right by us. We're getting money back only because they're not running those buses. If they was running those buses, DACO would not be giving us one dime, in my humble opinion. At the end of the day, the performance, in my opinion, has not been consistent. I'm going to try to be kind and polite. Has not been consistent. I know for my daughter, the bus is supposed to be there at a certain time. It's always 15 minutes late. And when she's coming home, it's always 15 to 20 minutes late coming home. To the point where I either got to take her or I got to bring her back, and that costs me Dunkin' Donuts both ways. So I'm double paying. That was a little humor to break the tension. But at the end of the day, Mr. President, many of us were on the board when we supported DATCO. We supported the contract. We supported making sure that we took care of their employees during the pandemic. Now that we're out of the pandemic, excuses are the tools of the weak and incompetent. We all know the rest. I'm tired of excuses, especially when I have a contract with you for you to provide me a service. If I was to be held accountable by this contract by DATCO, best believe this board would be held to the letter of the law of the contract if we owed them a hot nickel. At this point, I am not, as a board member, this has nothing to do with the drivers. I want to be very clear. I have an issue with DATCO and the poor service that they are giving our school district, Mr. President. So I am asking that between you and the superintendent, somehow, some way, that something strongly is shared with them on behalf of this board. And if we have to do a resolution, so be it. I am not pleased with the service that they are giving the kids in our town. They're getting to school late. They're getting home late. They're just missing way too much time. And it's disrupting the school buildings going and coming. It's got to stop. At what point does it stop?
Thank you, Mr. Panos.
Yes, I'd like to echo what Mr. Lockhart is saying, even though I don't have anybody that is in the position of his daughter. This has been very frustrating precisely because we were promised a lot from DATCO when we switched. So, but just as a practical matter, especially for being late, I mean, if they're going to be consistently very late, you know, I don't know, 15 minutes, but if certainly beyond 15, a half an hour on a consistent basis, then I think that the parents should be informed that they need to take their kids to school, and if we have to make it up for them in some manner, you know, let's discuss how we can do it. I don't know how long this is going to last, but you know, it's one thing to be 10 or 15 minutes late, but it's quite another thing to be an hour late, as you say. So that's and to be consistently. So consistently means you know which ones are that way, and even if it's going to be a new case of this sort, they should be able to get the word out to the parents and say, look, we might be 10 or 15. Well, looks like we're going to be an hour late. You know, to at least give them the heads up. So get in the car, take them, you know, do something. But starting school an hour late doesn't sound like a good idea. Thank you.
Ms. Taylor?
Not to belabor the point, but 106 is late every day. And so I've shared this before. It's gotten, you know, constituents, you know, mention it to me all the time, but I am also affected. My son gets door to door because of his services. And so you think about a child who's on the autism spectrum and he is very, very regimented. And yeah, I get the robocall, the text to say that it's going to be late, but to a child that waits at the door to explain to them, no, it's not here yet, sit down, it's a lot. That means his whole morning is changed by that one bus being late. He's getting now into the day later and all those things. And then for the kiddos that are going off to the bus stop by themselves and shivering at bus stops for 30 doggone minutes. That's the part that is unforgivable to me. You know, you see these kids and they're just trying to make it to school on time. It was in the dark, you know, before, you know, daylight savings time and everything. And it's raining, it's cold, whatever the case may be. And they don't know. let's just say that child doesn't have, a phone for their parent to say, I got the text. How do they share with their child that, that the bus is going to be late because they're all already on their way to work? It's just a lot of things there that I think that we're missing when you're thinking about students really trying to do things on their own for themselves, and their day can come. Think about how we feel when we're in traffic, right? These are kids, and they're getting to school late. The day has already started, the morning circle, whatever the case may be, and they're getting there and almost, frustrated. They're feeling like they did something wrong. They may have missed breakfast. There are children that are missing out on crucial, pivotal timeline trajectory of the day, and it all stems on how they get to school. A lot of parents aren't like me that have a flexible schedule to wait, right? Or they may have already gone. What do they do? Now the child's stuck at home. So I just think that when you're discussing this with DATCO, I get it. My sister-in-law is a bus driver, and the frustration's there. But when you're sharing with the corporate, folks and the people in senior leadership there, share how this right here is so important to the education of our kiddos. It really starts, right? Does their day not start when they skip off to the bus? That's when they are in our care. This board is now, your leadership is now in charge. Once they step on that bus, or before, they are in the care of Windsor Public Schools. When you don't have things in place from the moment they step on the bus till the moment they step off the bus, sometimes an hour and a half late, my son has come, a text isn't gonna do it. As a parent, I'm talking. So I just want to share just that it's just beyond the inconvenience. It's beyond the inconvenience at this point, and I think we need to really be careful moving forward when we're talking money, because that's a lot of money we paid them, that sometimes a reimbursement doesn't just do it. Thank you.
Anyone else on DATCO issue? Seeing no, I'll just say, to keep things short and sweet, ditto. And as president, I see a lot of people in town, and I get a lot of phone calls, and we don't want parents in general, everybody bringing their kids to school, because then you have terrible log jams. I live near Pequannock School, and at the beginning of the year, any school year, you see a log jam, and things have not been too bad lately. Thank you, Mr. Mahalko. But the other problem becomes that the youngest kids are at the end of that line. So if a bus starts out late at high school, it's not going to get better by the time it gets to Sage Park and then gets to the elementary school. And I see my neighbors with, kids in their driveway, and as Ms. Taylor had alluded to, many people don't have a flexible schedule. So their boss can say, you have to get to work on time. So it's more than an inconvenience. So I will take Mr. Lockhart's suggestion and try to work with Danielle and Dr. Hill as we finish up the year to see what else we can do vis-a-vis DATCO this year and how we prepare better for next year. Back to you, Dr. Hill.
Thank you, Mr. President, and all members for your concerns. We'll just continue to work on trying to get better performance. Everything's going to be duly noted, and it's just important. I do think about the kids who parents are off. Obviously, the kids are either at the house or at the stop. That's just a safety issue. Like they getting off to almost like two little kids that sit out there reading the bus. So the next discussion question was on student-led parent-teacher conferences, and I'm going to invite principals of our elementaries and principals of middle school to come up to the table or come forward, and questions from the board on that area. And if that's done, they will be the rest to address whatever questions that you have about student-led conferences.
Okay, thank you.
Roll your chair.
Yeah, the chairs roll, yeah. Slide the mic. Okay.
No, we're not. We just-
10:15.
So one of the questions that we had to do with what was the genesis of student-led conferences? How do they different than the traditional no student in the room type of conference? And then we'd like to have your input and also the input of board members. So thank you.
Okay, so I'm no longer a principal. However, I was the principal at Clover Street School, and I'm the one who brought student-led conferences to Windsor Public Schools. So, so that's where it started. It started in the fall of 2016, and we had done some research around, we had been talking about changing what the parent-teacher conferences look like as administrators, a whole different group of administrators from this table now. And so we did some research, and I did some research on student-led conferences, and I brought it to the faculty and staff, and then we voted as a staff to start implementing student-led conferences. And so one of the main reasons was around student agency and empowering our students to understand and know what their current levels were, because we had already been working on data folders and having them track their scores on different things, on different assessments. So we wanted to bring that further with them having to talk about themselves and talk to their parents about their strengths, right, what they do well in, and then opportunities for them to grow. And how can you, as my mom or dad, support me in my learning at home? So that was really the basis from it. And then staff really took off with it. And, I presented it, and they really ran with it and put together the PowerPoint slides. It was very controlled, and we taught the children. So this started at grades 3, 4, and 5, and we taught the children how to go through their portfolio. So it took time. Teachers had to plan on how they were going to present it to students, and then they had to take time to teach them how to talk about their data. Now, they put together a PowerPoint or a data sheet, and the students spoke from that. So they weren't just speaking, we didn't leave them out there to dry. We gave them something to speak from. So it was well-received. At the time, Dr. Cook was the superintendent. He heard about it. And then he had several of the teachers from Clover Street School go and do presentations at JFK, and then eventually to Sage Park, and that's how it became a 3 through 8 model.
Thank you very much for that description. Questions from the board? Mr. Panos, then Ms. Cantor.
Okay. I can see a value to having a student make a presentation about what they think they need, but I don't see that as a substitute for the teacher actually having a talk with the parent. And I mean, after all, you're talking about fourth or fifth grader, or even seventh or eighth grader. So you'd like to know what it is, the conversation be at an adult level, to be able to communicate with what the weaknesses are and what the teacher expects. Now, I don't quite understand what is the teacher going to do? Tell the student to, coach the student as to what to say. I would assume that that's what you're talking about. But, that seems to be something that they should be doing anyway. The question is, do they do it? And so you don't need to make a student-led conference. I can understand that someone doing this, but to say that that's the parent-teacher conference, is the conference led? Maybe I'm reading too much into what you expect of the student, but when my kids were going through, JFK and Sage, it was actually the student was there. I don't know why. So they could hear it. So there's nothing missing. What you heard was an objective opinion from an adult. And that's what I wanted to hear, you know. I mean, after all, they're the ones who know what the knowledge is and what the knowledge should be. So, you know, I would want their opinion, not just, you know, some general thing. But my own student, you know, my own kid, you know, could, you know, I would ask them how things are going anyway. So you can sort of have a conference with your own child anyway. So I don't think that this is a thing which is mutually exclusive. You know, it seems to me, though, that you've excluded the adult-to-adult contact. This is what it seems like. So, you know, it just looks a bit askance. You know, it just looks a little bit strange. So I will leave it at that. It doesn't.
Is there a question?
Seems we've taken away something. Can you respond to that?
So I would respectfully disagree, because I think you're adding more value, right? You're giving the student more value, you're empowering the student, the parent and the student and the teacher are having a conversation. So you're not leaving the teacher onto the side, right? So there is still a conversation, the teacher still interjects, there's still a conversation, right? And it's a collaboration. So yes, so basically, the student, what teachers prepare for parent-teacher conferences, they put together data, they put together samples of what they're going to show the parents, right? Now what we've done is included the student in picking out what's going to be put in that portfolio. So the student is involved in that part of it. So what we've done, we've also empowered our students to be able to speak about themselves instead of them being spoke about. They're speaking about themselves instead of sitting there listening to how the adults talk about them. They're involved in the conversation and they're leading the conversation, right? So yeah, go ahead.
And I believe that we are supporting our kids, we are enriching our kids, we are providing our kids with a language to speak about themselves and their abilities. And with the idea that we're taking away touch point, because I hear that's what you're saying, that we're robbing the adults of the ability to converse with the teachers. But in many of our schools, especially at Sage Park, right, there's time within the schedule for any parent to make time to talk to team teachers, to have conversations about students and their progress. And I always tell my teachers, and also my parents, that parent conferences is not the only time, or should not be the time, where you hear about your students' progress. Parent conferences should be confirmation of what you all already know, what is going on with your student throughout the entire year. And if parent conference is the first time that you are hearing about your students progressing or not, then we have not done our job communicating with families about student progress. And so, I told Mr. Madison earlier that initially I was not a believer in student-led conferences, but the power that I saw within my own child, having to sit through a conference myself and have her lead me through what are her strengths and what are her weaknesses, it's completely valuable. And our students are not shooting from the hips. When they talk about their strengths and weaknesses, they're talking about data that they themselves have seen upon themselves, that they set goals based on that data. They talk to their teachers about the data that they've achieved at the beginning of the year, and they make goals as far as where do you see yourselves mid-year and at the end of the year? What are you going to do to get there? And so we do provide kids with template, right? Because this is still learning, this is still growing. We're still teaching them how to talk about themselves in a confident way. And the teacher is there in the meeting as a facilitator. So if a parent has a question that's off the script, no teacher says, this is not the time to talk about it. They do engage the parents, and they do also still answer questions. And so many times, from the parent-student-led conferences, a teacher will say, or a parent will say, I do have some more questions, can we talk? And yes, they can talk, they do talk, and time is made for them to be able to talk. But I do believe that we should not take this away from students. The student agency and what we believe in Windsor as far as developing the genius in every child, this goes right along with that. And to take that away because it may seem as if we are not providing that touch time with the adults, I think would be a disservice for our children.
Well, maybe we're saying the same thing then. I don't see any reason not to do this. This sounds like a good idea, but it just strikes me as perhaps not a complete thing. Like I say, I'm glad to hear that you say anytime that a parent wants to have a meeting, specific meeting, especially if they have multiple, like at Sage Park, you have multiple teachers, you know, you want to maybe set time separately with different teachers to find out how they're doing in each subject. So, you know, if it's accomplishing the same thing, fine. It just off, and I think maybe we're saying the same thing here. You know, I'm not certain. All the more, I'm a great advocate of having children, of the students, take responsibility for what they have to do. I don't think we do it enough. But you know, it's you know, that's going to conversation for another day. But there's but this, it seems to me, is you know, you want to be able to have an adult to an adult conversation on it. That's what I see is missing. So it's almost maybe they can do a first part of it that way, and then a second part of the meeting, you know, have it be just between the adults. Maybe you arrange for it. Maybe I'm off on this thing. As long as adults can find out what the objective opinion of the adult in the room says, because that's the one. The child, you can tell them this, and you can make all kinds of goals, but you know, at the end of the day, it's still a student. He's learning. He doesn't know. That's why, I mean, if you do all these things, you know, we wouldn't need schools if they could do all this. You know, it's just so. Anyway, I'll just leave it at that. Thank you.
I would just add one more thing as well, from my perspective, that one of the kind of unintended positive return on investments for this process is the way that it holds teachers accountable to providing very strong feedback to students about work. Now, that's something that my school needs to actually get better at in general, but the process by which a student-led conference occurs requires teachers to have given students accurate information about why that academic artifact should or should not be included as part of the discussion process in the conference. So one of the things I've learned over the years in various districts and also here in Windsor is that there are some unintended consequences that actually target other areas of need that a staff member or a building might have. So in order for these conferences to be successful, teachers have to be very accurate and productive around providing feedback to student work.
Okay. Well,
Ms. Cantor?
Thank you. I've experienced a lot of these student-led conferences. In the younger years, they were more productive. As a student gets older, they have more classes, the core courses, and I found it was unproductive. My son could have done the presentation at home. We didn't need to go to school. We met with his sociology teacher. That was great, but we did not have the opportunity to meet with the core courses for the teachers, English language arts, math, and science. We got to meet with band, strings, sociology, the challenge teachers, but I didn't meet with those. And each student is very young. They do not know their weakness and strengths all the time. And I think it's more beneficial when you can meet with those core teachers at that given time. We run a tight schedule all the time, and we had hoped that we could meet with those 3 other teachers, but we couldn't. We didn't have the opportunity. And a lot of times when students graduate from high school, they still don't know all their weaknesses and all their strengths. Even when you get out into the work world, you don't know. So I just wanted to say, I thought that if we could have met with the core teachers that night, it would have been more beneficial. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Taylor? And then Mr. Lockhart.
So my daughter was in 3rd grade when this started. She's in 9th grade today, so I asked her this morning how she felt about student-led conferences. She was like, makes you nervous to present, but it was, you know, she goes, I guess it was kind of cool to show you what I was working on. And I agree with her because at, you know, 8 years old or whatever you are in 3rd grade, she had her little file, and I recall that she went through her little data and she shared, but it wasn't separate from the conversation that I was having with her teacher. It was in partnership with the conversation I was having with her teacher, and I think that's the part that I feel like is being missed here. When a student is excluded from the conversation of their education, it's now hearsay. You have a parent going in to speak to the teacher, then they come home saying, well, what was this? What was this? Why not have that conversation and collaboration at the same time, hearing the same information at the same time, sharing out the same the information at the same time, and then being able to discuss it. It's also, I think, very amazing to see a child at 9, 10 years old, you know, sharing a PowerPoint deck. I think there's adults in this room that wouldn't be able to do that. So I think that is kudos. I am an advocate for this process. I think it's great. And again, as having a 9th grader, she's now not afraid to present because she's been doing this. This is not anything new. So, you know, as a parent, I think it's fantastic. And again, I'm asking her, how was that for you? She was like, well, I remember doing them. I was nervous, but it's really great to see how over time, it was just something that she was used to doing. So I think it's fantastic, and hats off to the team that it's grown from what I'm hearing since that time. And then during the pandemic, she did it virtually. So I think, again, this is stuff that's happening for adults right now, that they are able to rise to the occasion at such a young age. I think it's hats off to the team, actually. Thanks.
Anyone else? Mr. Lockhart.
This is my 4th child coming through Sage Park, and I've never had a bad experience. Outside of some of the little quirks and behaviors that I had to correct as a parent, taking ownership of my child. But the student-led stuff that has been done with my daughter, Ms. Jerkson, I agree with you spot on. We've always been in contact with our teachers, but more importantly, teachers have always been in contact with us, me and my wife, in regards to our children. So it was nothing surprising when we got to the conferences and we got to this new process with the student-led stuff. And actually, I have some outspoken children. I don't know where they get it from, but that daughter of mine, she's really now off the charts with the way she speaks now. And she is definitely a female version of me. I'm sorry, but she's really gravitated to this process, and I see value in it. I also understand Mr. Panos' point, as long as that it's not being driven by the children, but it's supplemented by the children. I think that's what's going on from my perspective. But I just think it adds value, and I just want to say that if I've had 4 come through, and every single time the staff has always been attentive. If my child was messing up, I was always contacted. I've been emailed. They called a house phone. They called a cell phone. They make every effort to try to reach at least my house. I can't speak for everybody else's house, but if they're reaching out for me, I'm assuming they're reaching out to everybody else as well. And it's not because I'm a board member, because I make it very clear that I don't go into the buildings unless I have to, as a father. And I've never had, well, I had to do it once. Had to do it once, and it wasn't your building. So I just want to say thank you. That it's been consistent throughout, and it's continued under your leadership. So I have 0 issues with this program, and I'm glad that it's here in Windsor.
Mr. Wollaston?
Yeah, I guess I'll just try to provide a point of view for maybe a little more mischievous student. So, not saying this is me, but an advantage a student could have if they're underperforming in a setting like this, well, not under this setting, but if the student isn't included, is so the teacher and the parent talks, and they get the information, and then when it's time for the student to get home and talk to their parent about the information received, oh, the teacher doesn't like me, she's always lying on me. Now, when the when the student goes to school and the student talks to the teacher, they can have a whole nother conversation with the teacher about what's happening at home, and there's a disconnect, and they're able to separate the communication that's happened with the teacher with what is actually happening in the school. So I think a benefit to this is the extra accountability that's given, because the student is right here. If you're gonna say the teacher is lying, you gotta say the teacher is lying to their face, right in front of the teacher's face. If you're gonna say the teacher has a bias, you have to say this right in front of the teacher's face, because you're right there. Another benefit is that it provides transparency, as I said, and it invites students to be a participant in their own education. For a long time, I felt like education was just something that happened to me. But in this instance, I can see, I haven't experienced any of this, but I can see how it's such a good thing because it invites you, even at such an early age, to evaluate how you're learning and how you're processing and how you're doing in these classes. It forces you to do it because you're being put on the spot and you're told you have to present this. And it sounds like a pretty good thing to me.
Thank you. Ms. Galinsky?
Hi, so one, I want to thank you for really going into great depths about this because I was not familiar with this process. I think most know I have very young children, but they are not at that age where they are involved in student-led conferences. I would have to say that right now, I actually bring my children to the conferences because I really don't have any other option, and I think it's actually awesome that way because they're sitting in with me regardless, and they're hearing what the teacher's having to say. And if they're paying attention, which is a little questionable at night, they actually might be able to interject and give me more information or even review the work with me that the teacher's reviewing. But for those that aren't liking how the process is going, my question is, are the teachers being taught correctly how to run these conferences? And if there are some that are not conducting them the right way, how can we encourage them to, one, either work with other teachers that do it really well or to get the proper training? Because I think the process seems pretty great, and from what I hear now is that it is extremely beneficial. But if there's a certain percentage that don't like the process, then I feel like we're missing a link and there's some work that we can do to better it. And then secondly, Ms. Cantor had mentioned that she couldn't meet with the core teachers. I was curious as to why. Maybe you could actually answer that. I don't know, is it just a scheduling conflict that there wasn't any time that worked with their schedule and yours? But I've never heard that, so I was curious if maybe you could.
We were told we had to sign up with a sociology teacher, and we tried to sign up with the 3 core teachers, and we were not able to. They said that we could meet another time. That's what was instructed to us. I don't know why. I think because they were doing the other houses with the other students that they were assigned, so we couldn't meet with them. But we really wanted to meet with them because teachers are the experts. And that's how we feel when they're older, because they will not always perform the same in every class. They will have more strengths and more weaknesses in other classes, depending on what it was, and we wanted to see what it was. So that's why we wanted to meet that night. It could have been like 5 or 10 minutes, but I understand they were busy.
Ms. Jorgensen?
So I'll answer that question. So conducting student-led conferences is it's a task when you have to think about the schedule. So each student is granted 20 minutes. And so we have about 130 kids, 25 kids in each house. Each house has about 6 teachers. And so when we divide the time with, how many available 20-minute periods there are within an hour versus how many hours we have for conferences total, then it does not leave us room for parents to go to multiple teachers in the house. However, they can visit Unified Arts teachers because their time period is 10 minutes. And so for those evenings, when it's student-led conferences, you are allowed 1 conference with a core teacher because the conference is much longer. It's 20 minutes versus quick 10-minute snapshot. But the student is doing the presenting while the teacher is there facilitating. And as I stated earlier, it's not the only time that our parents can meet. And our teachers are very flexible about having team meetings before classes in the morning. And if we have parents, because we have done so, who struggle with meeting team meetings on time during the school day, teachers have stayed after school. And I don't commit teachers to stay after school because they have a contract. But they have found flexible ways to meet teachers' needs. And also for the record, we're not tone deaf, right? So from the onset of embracing student-led conferences at the middle school, we have 2 conferences in a school year. One's usually in the fall and one's usually in the spring. So one of our conferences is done in the traditional style, where they're 10-minute conferences. Parents can sign up to see any teacher that they want within 10 minutes, and most parents sign up to see every last teacher. they have the right to do so, and they navigate through the entire building. And just this year, we switched the traditional conference to the beginning of the school year. We believe it was important for teachers to have, and parents to have that communication piece, see each other face to face, and it was beautiful. But we do reserve, and will continue to reserve, one conference, at least for student-led conferences. And so I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, no, that's very helpful.
Thank you.
I appreciate that, so thank you.
So I'm happy to go back to the first question for you. I think that, and speaking from my perspective from my school, we've had a significant amount of staff turnover, so we will be doing much more formalized training on this coming up, because it's something that hasn't been addressed in a little while, and obviously we have a significant number of people who haven't taught in my building. So we do need that, and that speaks to the more powerful point in that there is a very somewhat rigid structure to how these are formatted out, and missing certain pieces of that actually can be detrimental to the relationship of what's learned or shared across those particular conferences. So there is a structure to follow. I, having attended about 40 to 50 of my own students' conferences at JFK this year, I've seen variability, which obviously leads me to believe we have to bring some kind of consistency back to the practice itself. But once the structure is actually followed and the process is followed as it's supposed to be delineated, it's very productive, or at least I've found it to be very productive.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for answering my first question, too. I appreciate that.
A follow-up?
I just wanted to say that in the younger years, it was easier because there were only 2 teachers. And when they get older, there is a whole slew of teachers. And as a very interested parent in my child's education and my husband, you know I'm there. So that's why we were disappointed. And you were always trying to juggle, you know that. So thank you.
That is a problem of practice I am not going to do.
Taylor?
I just wanted to share that, again, because I think you touched on it, the parent-teacher conference isn't the time to do all that. There's no way in the world in a 10 or 20-minute conversation you're going to be able to do like a big, huge wrap-up of everything your child has done for the last 5 months. That's not going to happen. That's why there's a website. That's why their numbers and emails are on there. And setting up time to have a conversation during, either the school day when they have their prep time, whatever the case may be. If parents think that they're going to be able to do a round robin of every student that they're able to see, that they teach, that is impossible. So if people want to dive a little bit deeper, I would always suggest reaching out, email, write a note, whatever you want to do, but it doesn't have to happen. You don't have to wait for a parent-teacher conference time.
You just stole my closing. Yes, thank you very much for your answering the questions and your presentation.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you, folks.
Back to Dr. Hill.
Thank you, folks. So the next question was about the accelerated math program at the middle school. So I have Principal Jorgensen, and I'm going to ask Dr. Haiti to come join her at the table to answer any questions.
Okay. Last year, you were, near the end of the year, you were with us and you presented what had happened last year with COVID.
Yes.
Which, as to the accelerated math program, which was that in the beginning of the year, for half a year, students were all in kind of a general math. And then second part of that, those who you think were at a higher level were then put into that higher level math class for the rest of the year, and that would then, you showed us on the slides, enabling them to do higher level math in 7th, so that in 8th grade, they might be able to be taking algebra or maybe even geometry as well, depending on the situation. And so the question that we have that precipitated this was, what's going on with the accelerated math this year? You said last year you thought we might just stay with that model, or maybe we'll go back to the old model and differentiate. So
we stayed with the model that I presented upon last school year. So at the end of Q1 this year, which was maybe the end of October to beginning of November, we identified approximately 47 kids or so who were showing a very high aptitude for math, and were progressing a lot quicker than their peers. At that time, those students started receiving enrichment classes where they started to be taught grade 7 math standards so that they would be ready to then take on pre-algebra within the 7th grade. So currently with the 47 kids, we have had at least 2 kids whose parents have pulled them because they said it's too much. We currently are looking at 5 kids who, while we did identify them early as having very high math aptitude, they're showing some struggles within their regular math class, but we're still working with them. And then we just added at least 2 more kids who, while at the beginning of the year, didn't show like really quick speed with math, grasping onto the concepts pretty quickly, they have matured and they have demonstrated their ability to do so now. So now we have now brought them on to receiving their enrichment classes with our gifted and talented teacher. So that program is still in play. I love the way the program is now because I believe identifying the kids at 5th grade and setting that trajectory for them at such a young age does them no justice. And the fact that we can look at them, monitor them, it's an ongoing monitoring process for the entire school year. I mean, we just added 2 kids. That would not have necessarily happened under our old model. And so we are on trajectory to have about 40-something kids entering into pre-algebra in the 7th grade. And so when the year comes to a close, we will be sending letters home to families, letting them know which of their students have been identified based on their achievement this school year to enter into pre-algebra.
Okay.
Any other questions?
No. That's fine. So basically, it's a modification of it. You're still maintaining the essence of the idea of those who can handle the abstract
It would be a
material
disservice not to challenge them and move them forward.
Yeah. So, right. Yeah. The 5th grade, they would have to really have figured it out pretty well in the 5th grade, before to be able to establish it for certain. You have to have the flexibility to go up or stay or whatever. So. I think so. It's still so effectively. It is still in place. You still have 3.
The end goal is
levels.
still the same. They
Yeah.
will still attend or take pre-algebra in 7th grade. They will still take algebra and or geometry in 8th grade. We just modify what it looked like in 6th grade
Yep.
to allow for growth, maturity, and to give more students an opportunity to be able to achieve that.
Good. Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you so much.
You are most welcome.
Noha, good job.
See how easy that is?
I was here for curriculum questions.
Back to you, Dr. Hill.
Thank you very much. Next, we're going to have, I'm going to call forward Ms. Bonnie Feynman and Ms. India Monroe to discuss the ECE 1007 Seminar on Academic Writing and Multimodal Composition Course proposal.
All right, good evening.
Good evening.
So my name is India Monroe, and I am the English Department Chair at Windsor High School. I'm here to talk about a UConn ECE English course that we have, and we'd like to make it a standalone course in our program of studies, and currently it is taught in hybrid with an AP course. If you don't know what an ECE course is, UConn has early college courses that students can take for college credit. So our 2 college credit options at the high school would be AP courses and ECE courses. So currently, for an ECE course, anybody who teaches the course needs to have certification by UConn and they're following a UConn curriculum. And students who receive a C- or higher in the course, they're able to get college credit from UConn, and that's transferable. An AP course, in contrast, is also a college credit-bearing course, but as you're probably familiar, there's an exam at the end, and students need to either score a 3, 4, or a 5, depending upon the college or university, to receive college credit. So currently, in our English 12, we have an English ECE course. It's taught in tandem with our AP English 12 course, as most of our ECE courses are. So our ECE courses, the college-bearing courses, tend to be taught with an AP course that has the same skills. So a student would register for an AP course. So in my case, it would be AP English Literature in grade 12. And then they would have the option to get credit as an ECE course if they chose to sign up, and there is a small fee for that. So UConn just made a change that we found out about in March for the senior course, making it so that it no longer aligns with our grade 12 AP course. And what we're here right now just to talk about is making that UConn ECE course a separate course in our course catalog.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Yes.
So we can start the conversation. Are you open to a motion?
Yes, I am.
Move that the Board of Education approve the ECE 1007 seminar in academic writing and multimodal composition course.
Is there a second?
Well, I assume the
We're still gonna have-
discussion's
yeah,
going
we're
to
gonna go
yes, I'll
back.
second
Yeah.
it, thank you.
Well, I should have did the motion first before we allowed her, so.
Is there a second?
I did.
Second by Mr. Panos. Continue, thank you.
Sure. So the change would be that instead of running, as I mentioned, the AP 12 Literature and Composition course together with the ECE course, now we're going to separate them out. Because the scheduling has already been done, so students have signed up to take their English 12 AP Literature and Composition course. What we would need to do is notify parents through a letter and students stating that now they have the opportunity to take either the AP Literature and Composition course, or they can take the UConn ECE course in multimodal composition. And the skills are different, and we would outline those. So students would actually have more choice. And we're also pulling from the same pool of students. So these are students who would have elected to take a college credit course their senior year. Now they have 2 options instead of 1. So this motion is really to say, now we're going to take this UConn course and put it in the program of studies rather than bundling it.
Okay, questions? Mr. Panos?
I guess the impression I have is that the ECE course is easier than the AP course. Is that incorrect?
I wouldn't say that.
So why does UConn have its, why does it start and have a separate category? I mean, Boston College doesn't do this. I mean, they take an AP course, McGill, or, they don't have a separate category. So they just look at your grade. What did you get? A 3, 4, or 5, and they decide, right? So what is it? I mean, I had almost in reading through this, it almost looked like a remedial course to me. I couldn't make much sense, in the description, which is a lot more than what this is.
Okay, I can just explain it a little more clearly. So UConn has a first-year writing course for freshmen. They offer it to Connecticut schools, so it's taught in high school. So in 12th grade, a 12th grader can take that.
Excuse me. Sorry.
So a high schooler can take that
Sorry.
freshman course as a senior, and it's the same level course, same curriculum as they would get at UConn. And they get the UConn credits and they can transfer them. So we also have AP, which is done by College Board, right? So with the AP courses, there's a rigorous syllabus to those as well, and students take the course, and they have an exam at the end, and depending on their score, colleges either give them credit or not, depending on the college.
Okay, but the ECE course is something, from what you were saying, it's almost like you leave the AP course and a little later in the day you take another course. No, it's the same thing. It runs concurrently, right? This is
Because the skills for these two
Are
courses were
similar.
very aligned. So the UConn first-year writing course was focusing on close reading, literary analysis, the same skills that the AP literature and composition was. Now UConn changed it. So it's really focusing now on rhetoric, nonfiction, and different modes of composing, and it doesn't align anymore with AP, so we couldn't
I
teach in the
see.
same way. yeah.
Okay, okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Other questions?
I guess my point is that it's not a lowering of the standard.
No.
Okay.
It's actually 4 credits.
I would assume if UConn's going to accept it for credit and it's the same course they teach at UConn, the standards would be equivalent to what UConn requires.
Okay, thank you.
Motion made by Mr. Lockhart, seconded by Mr. Panos. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Abstention. Motion carries 800. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Committee reports. Are there any committee reports? Looks like no. Okay.
Chairman, before you
Yes.
proceed with the agenda, I moved that the Board of Education adjust the agenda where we make item 12, audience to visitors, place it between items 10 and 11.
I'll second that.
Motion made by Mr. Lockhart, seconded by Mr. Panos to move item
Item
12
and make it after 10.
after 10. Any discussion? Seeing and hearing none. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Abstentions? Motion carries 800. Committee reports, no. Other announcements, Board of Education Policy Committee will be meeting Thursday, the 28th, 2022, and that'll be virtual. Board of Education Long Range Planning Committee had been scheduled for Thursday, the 28th at 6:30, and I believe, Mr. Wollaston, that's probably going to be moved now? Okay. A new date will be set for that. Board of Education Curriculum Committee will be meeting Thursday, May 12th, 2022 at 4:30, virtual. And the next Board of Education regular meeting is Tuesday, May 17th, 2022. At this time, we'll go to audience to visitor. Anybody in the room who wants to address the board? Seeing none. Ms. Daly, anybody online?
There are currently no attendees that have their hands raised, and there are no comments in the Q&A feature.
Okay, we'll close audience to visitor. The next item has to do with going to an executive session. Mr. Lockhart?
Mr. President, I move the Board of Education enter into executive session on employee personnel matter, inviting Superintendent of Schools Dr. Hill and Director of Business Services Danielle Batchelder.
Second.
Second. Motion made by Mr. Lockhart, seconded by Mr. Panos. Any discussion? Seeing and hearing none. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Abstention. Motion carries 800. We are in recess going into executive session.
Here or another one?
As my
Happy
grandchildren
spouse,
gobble
happy
these
house.
things up.
Did you leave any for us, sir? My birthday is on Sunday.
So how many birthdays do you have?
He has 2 or 3 in
Every time there's something here.
I'm trying to catch you, Paul.
Goodies. Yeah, I think you're right.
Pushing 62. Mr. President, says quiet.
Okay, we're back in session, and is there a motion?
Mr. President,
Yes, sir.
I move that the Board of Education, that the contract of employment of employees listed in the Superintendent's Human Resources Report addendum not be renewed for the following year upon its expiration at the end of the 2021-2022 school year, and that the superintendent of schools is directed to advise such persons in writing of this action.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Lockhart, seconded by Mr. Panos. Any discussion? Seeing and hearing none. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Abstention, motion carries 800.
Motion to adjourn.
Looked like, I'd like to end with comments again that people may have, or announcements that they may have of things going on in town. So I'll, looking at Jeremy, start with Jeremy. Any comments or announcements?
Just a welcome back to all of our teachers and students. I hope everybody enjoyed their break. And I don't have any announcements. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Wollaston, birthday boy.
I'd just like to say thanks for the birthday love from everyone, and to State Rep Miriam Khan. Not sure if she's still online, but I appreciate her sentiments as well. She didn't like when I sang her. Well, I made everybody sing happy birthday. She was a little embarrassed, but I like when people celebrate me, so I don't mind it.
Ms. Galinsky, any announcements or comments?
Yeah, just welcome back, everyone. But if anyone's like me, I'm sure we all wish we were still on vacation. So, but here we are, and here's to a great month.
Great. Ms. Taylor.
I want to lift that Earth Day is coming and upon us. Let's do better for this Earth that we're on. To my knowledge, we only get one. And also that April is Autism Awareness, now Autism Acceptance Month. We want to celebrate our community and all of our differences and our different learnings. And of course, lifting Teacher Appreciation Week, which is also upon us. We appreciate all that you do. Thank you.
Ms. Cantor.
I'd just like to welcome everybody back from vacation. I'm never on vacation usually. I'm 24/7 being a nurse, and I just want people to take good care of themselves, enjoy life, and be careful, have fun, recognize others, be good to each other, and support each other. Thank you.
Mr. Lockhart.
Yes, I just want to say to the teachers, we look forward to seeing you the week of May 2nd through 6th as we celebrate Teacher Appreciation Week. Hopefully you will enjoy the breakfast that is provided by the district. And on a personal note, I just ask that the board keep Dr. Joe Araldi in prayer. He is going through some medical challenges right now. And anyone that knows Dr. Araldi, he has been very good for the school district. He definitely helped with a lot of he did a lot of consultations. He assisted us with our last superintendent search. He has done a lot of great work as a contractor for the Windsor School District, and he is definitely facing a tremendous uphill battle, and I just ask that you keep him in prayer. He's in high spirits right now, but he's definitely got a tough road ahead of him, and just want to make sure that we all keep him in prayer, please.
Thank you. Mr. Panos.
Apropos of Earth Day, I just can't wait for that global warming to start sometime here pretty soon. I don't think... I think it's delayed. Maybe it'll be another millennium when they when the real global warming starts. Thank you very much.
One thing, and I'm glad Ms. Taylor brought up Earth Day coming up. I believe there's a community cleanup, too. I think we start down in Sharson Park. I know many of us have participated in that before, another great community opportunity. That is on Saturday, the 23rd. And at this point, I'm looking for one last motion.
So moved.
Motion made by Mr. Panos to adjourn, seconded by Mr. Lockhart. Seeing no discussion, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Abstentions. Motion carries 8-0-0. We are adjourned at 9:28.
Thank you, Paul!